Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to start by adding to the condolences of my colleagues to everybody impacted and affected by the terrible accident we've seen in the last 24 hours. We're here to talk about some exciting things that have been happening in safety promotion, and when events like this happen, it's difficult to kind of get excited about things. But hopefully what events like this do show us is remind us of the need for our resolve and our strength to work together and collaborate to improve safety at every opportunity. So what I'm here to do then is to update you in a bit more detail on some of the things that we've been doing within the safety promotion part of the Rotorcraft roadmap. And particularly at this point, it's important to mention the excellent collaboration we've had with the industry through the European Safety Promotion Network, Rotorcraft, the ESPNR, a team of dedicated people who support your industry by working together with us as part of our Together for Safety Promotion initiative. And together, we've been doing some really important and useful things since we were last here at the symposium. Some of you might remember that 2 years ago, I stood on the stage in the hotel in Cologne and promised that last year we would have a Rotorcraft website. You'll be pleased to hear, as David said, that that website was launched in May of this year. And if you haven't seen it already, if you Google EASA Rotorcraft community, hopefully the first hit you'll get on Google will be that community website. All of the pages of that site are easily accessible, different navigation. And because it's not just a website, but a community, we also have the opportunity where you can sign up in lots of different ways, get updates, and then also post comments and discussions and really engage with our safety discussions. It's more than just a one-way transmission of information. So check out that community site, and I'll give you an idea of some of the exciting things we've been doing over the last year or so. We also have lots of different ways to engage on LinkedIn now. We've talked before about the ESPNR group, and again, it's an ideal place to see lots of things that are happening, discussions, information on rotorcraft safety, so join that group. We also have the two groups for the specialist communities, so we now have over 550 members of the hoist operations group, and now 75 members already in the new community on sling load operations. So if you're involved in those, check those out. And again, we've got some great people free in the ESPNR teams really leading and helping what's going on in those groups and those engagements. So there's quite a lot been happening, things you might have missed. So just to give you a flavor for some of those, we started kind of following on from the workshop we had at last year's symposium with some articles and various things on technologies with safety benefits. And you'll see us talk about a lot more of that into next year as well. It's a really important subject and something that continually evolves. We've looked at auto-rotation management in training. With a collaboration through with Airbus helicopters, we've been doing some work on lithium batteries, and we published some information on that. We've been talking about airmanship, cable collisions, and we had an animated video on that subject where the video was there to attract a little bit of attention, reinforce some of the key messages, and encourage people to read the more detailed information in the article. Having seen within our collaborative groups a number of videos on the internet showing helicopters doing perhaps what you might define risky maneuvers and things that might not necessarily be appropriate, we also covered that subject. Asking people to think about their risk appetite. What was the right thing to do in certain circumstances? So please also go and take a look at that. We've tried a few new things as well this year. Hopefully you'll have seen our video series with pilot and instructor Mona Seeberger. You've been seeing some of the videos during the breaks throughout this event, and it's been a really interesting way to highlight some of the key messages through short, simple videos. As you saw earlier, we covered COVID return to flying and taking some of the lessons that had come from the different stakeholder discussions and putting them together in a short video there. Mona's covered pre-flight planning, night pre-flights, and more recently the subject of decision making. And coming very soon, just before Christmas, the final of this first series of videos will focus on post-flight debriefs and how you can look after a flight and kind of think what you've learned and see how you can apply those lessons to future flights and future operations and activities. So we've been doing that. Obviously, there's been a lot of things also on the COVID front. Hopefully, many of you saw in the middle there, following a huge collaboration with lots of different organizations, a basic set of COVID health guidelines that was an extension of the health safety protocol kind of discussions that tried to apply some simple agreed health safety measures from general aviation and recreational flying through to commercial flying. And hopefully many of you found that useful. We also did some work with our flight standards colleagues on instructors and particularly that return to flying element and helping pilots who, particularly in that first lockdown, hadn't flown and hadn't had that recent experience, and how do we help that people return to the cockpit as simply and effectively as possible. And more recently, in the last week, knowing that through this crisis so many people have been affected on a personal level, we've launched a package of well-being and also careers support information that you'll also find on the Rotorcraft community. Hundreds and hundreds of people, experts from across aviation and careers, psychologists, have given their time to create material and webinars and really useful practical information that you can use if you find yourself in the unfortunate situation of having lost your job or been affected by this crisis in different ways. So I encourage you to also go and check out that well-being material. Hopefully there's a lot of useful things for everybody. And of course now, as I come to not necessarily the end of the presentation, but really the kind of most interesting bit, we'd hope to be able to do this at European Rotors live and with Ari and Mathieu in our video, but unfortunately the circumstances mean that it's not possible. But we'd like to share with you the premiere of 2020's main safety promotion video. Once again, we involve former World Rally champion Ari Vatanen, who's a helicopter pilot with his instructor Mathieu in France. So, if we could now run the video, that would be fantastic.
Ari the pilot comes back from a ferry flight and meets his examiner Mathieu to perform his annual type rating renewal in an AS350 helicopter. Ari asks Mathieu how he would like to organize the type rating renewal test. The helicopter is ready and the weather is good. Ari has prepared the aeronautical briefing and checked the helicopter's performance. Mathieu says to Ari that he has another idea in mind and invites Ari to follow him for a new type of flight. Mathieu presents Ari the EASA certified AS350 full flight simulator. Mathieu tells Ari that by flying in the simulator, they will have the opportunity to train on real emergency procedures that cannot be trained on aircraft. Ari tells Mathieu that he is worried that it won't be the same as flying in the real helicopter, and that he didn't know that it was okay to complete the type rating renewal in the simulator. Mathieu tells Ari that they will start with a training flight where Ari will have the opportunity to train on all the emergency procedures of the AS350. Some of these, like a tail rotor drive failure, cannot be trained in real flight. Due to health protection measures, Mathieu puts on a mask and gives one to Ari before getting comfortable in the simulator. Mathieu tells Ari that he will get used to the motion of the simulator quickly. After some normal procedures, Matthew trains Ari to perform a tail rotor drive failure. During the first one, the helicopter goes out of control and the simulator is paused. Matthew explains to Ari the challenges of dealing with this type of failure, and on the second attempt, Ari lands the simulator safely. Ari and Matthew take their places in the simulator for the type rating renewal flight. Matthew gives the last instructions and encourages Ari to be confident and treat it like he's in the real helicopter. Ari is still concerned that the simulator will not be real enough for him to show Matthew what he can really do. Ari performs the flight just like he would in the real helicopter. Matthew manages the scenario, playing the role of an air traffic controller, and triggers some abnormal situations and challenging weather conditions that Ari has to deal with. Did he do enough to pass the renewal test? Was the simulator realistic enough? Ari successfully passed his renewal test. He was a bit stressed to fly in a simulator, but enjoyed the possibility to train on demanding situations that cannot be trained on aircraft.
Matthew, training and testing in a full flight simulator provides the opportunity to perform emergency procedures and manage difficult situations like weather degradation in a safe, simulated environment. Because these are essential skills to learn if you are going to be the best pilot you can be. Do you include simulator flying in your routine training?
Hopefully you found that an interesting video and some very important lessons in terms of what we see from the accident statistics, the number of occurrences that happen during training that perhaps we can avoid by doing more training in simulators like that. Again, huge thanks to Ari and Mathieu and the team at Safety for Flight. I know they're there watching that video down in France, so thank you to them, and a virtual round of applause from everybody for a great video. Just to round off my presentation, one of the things I just want to finish off by highlighting is that being a global business requires global collaboration. And we're not just working in Europe with EHA, with the European manufacturers, with Airbus, with Leonardo, with others across the community here in Europe. We're also then reaching out at a global level, particularly with HAI and also with the International Helicopter Safety Foundation, and working with colleagues all across the world to collaborate our efforts and do the best we can to try and keep as many people safe as possible. Thank you very much for your time, and hopefully you found that interesting. If you have any ideas or anything you think we should be covering in our promotion, if you want to get involved, offer support and help, don't hesitate to send us an email to our email address there, safetypromotion@easa.europa.eu. And don't forget to join the Rotorcraft community or the LinkedIn groups as well. Thank you very much, and I wish you a pleasant day.
The year 2020 is turning out to forget about aviation almost at its best. After a long layoff due to COVID-19, let's reflect on one familiar but crucial aspect: flight planning. As a flight instructor, I get constantly asked which important points encourage me to keep safe and confident. With EASA and Casco, I will show you.
First thing, let's think about threat and error management. Threats are outside our control but could affect the safety of our flight, like bad weather or an aircraft heading in our direction. Errors are things that we do or don't do, like slow speed while approaching or settling with power. You can't cut off all threats and errors, but you can mitigate them as much as possible. Second thing, is our helicopter ready for the flight? It was grounded like you. Review all documents. How about your fuel and oil? And a proper pre-flight inspection. Third thing, pre-flight planning. You probably already had a pre-flight planning routine, although it's likely you haven't used it for a while now. Pay attention to NOTAMs. At the end, the aerodrome is closed due to COVID-19. Regarding the weather briefings, decision making is an important point. Don't be afraid to say no. And the fourth thing, after the pre-flight planning, it's also a good time to visualize. Feeling good and healthy? Make a last walk around before you get into the helicopter, making sure all cowlings are closed.
Thank you for watching, and don't forget to visit Casco's website and join us on the Rotorcraft community for more information. Stay safe and stay healthy.